listening to the Good Talk podcast with Ryan Ventura.
What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Good Talk podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ventura. We're still recording episodes via Skype again. The location that I normally record at, it's in use for a few projects that we're working on, and unfortunately, my living room in my own home is in use right now. So I actually had to have my guest appear to us via the magic of Skype. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest for today, BFL amateur fighter Paul Welters. How you doing today?
Really good. Thanks for having me on the show, Ryan.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you on the show. Now, the last time you were in the BFL cage was BFL 37, and this was back in of last year of this month, actually.
That's correct. That's correct.
Awesome. And how did you get your start in mixed martial arts, Paul? Was it through BJJ? Was it through kickboxing, or did you just jump right into the pool right away?
You know, my story getting into it is kind of, I guess, a bit of a unique one. Before I got into mixed martial arts or even jiu-jitsu, I snowboarded professionally when I was younger, between the ages of 18 and 25. So that was where my passion was for a long time. Like a lot of people, I actually found out about mixed martial arts. I kind of always knew that it was there, but it wasn't really until it hit the mainstream with the explosion of the Ultimate Fighter, primarily the viral, what would have been viral back then, the video that was Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner slugging it out. That, I was part of that whole demographic that, people were literally calling each other, being like, yo, you got to turn to Spike and check this thing out. And when I first saw it, I was just like, oh man, like this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it just completely got me hooked after that. Snowboarding was kind of winding down for me competitively. And I just kind of dove headfirst into jiu-jitsu. And I just absolutely love it still to this day. It's so challenging, especially in the gi, but man, I'm completely addicted.
That's awesome. I mean, you go from one extreme sport to another extreme sport. Was the jump for you something difficult to make, or was it like just a natural progression for you personally?
The funny part is, I mean, like a lot of guys, I still struggle with striking. I find it's very difficult, to get very proficient at it.
Mm-hmm.
Grappling, I tend to gravitate a little bit easier towards, and I think that has a lot to do with being used to spinning and flipping around and snowboarding. I just never, I was always, especially with no-gi, I was able to adapt to it quite quickly. From a beginner standpoint, obviously I still have a tremendous amount to learn. I'm just barely a blue belt, so, still a tremendous amount to learn. But I definitely gravitated more towards the grappling. I started competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments a little bit, had some early success, and when I really started looking at competing in mixed martial arts, I was fortunate. BFL was willing to give me a chance to prove myself and get in there, and the rest is history. I'm super hooked on it still, and still love training every day.
Awesome. Now, for those that don't know, where did you start training? Because to my understanding, we chatted a little bit earlier before the show started, and you just switched gyms recently. Could you tell everyone about that?
Sure, yeah, I did. When I first started out, I was out at the West Coast Mixed Martial Arts under Don Whitfield, which was a great school to start at. And from there, I moved out towards North Vancouver and ended up competing for Universal out there. And that's who I fought under for the BFL fight. Great coaches out of there, great group of guys. And then more recently, my girlfriend and I moved out to Langley, and I'm training out of Revoluion now. And man, it's a great place, full cage, huge facility, great people. Yeah, very, very fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, your last, I guess this was your amateur debut, yes? So it was your first MMA fight in a organized environment, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. It was my first time. Like I said, I only did a couple jiu-jitsu tournaments before. Had some very mild success with it, and then kind of just dove head first into MMA. They offered me Mitch Burke for my first fight. He's very, very tough guy. He was on his 8th fight, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a good fight. Looking back now, I mean, of course, everybody looks back at the footage of their first fight and says, "Oh man, like I did so many things wrong." But I try to look at it as learning tools, and I definitely know I need to improve on. The part that I was happy about was that, he didn't just run me over like a lot of people were expecting a guy on his 8th fight to do. And I took him to a decision, and only that, in the end of the 3rd round, I took him down and mounted him and finished in that position. So, I feel very confident, if I compete again. To be honest with you, I'd love to fight Mitch again. I mean, it was a really fun fight, and judging by the reaction from the crowd, they seem to really like it too. And at the end of the day, I think that's what matters.
Yeah, I do remember because like I've been in the cage like numerous times, like introducing
Sure.
fighter after fighter.
Man,
That fight still sticks in my head, man.
Man, that's awesome to hear. Like when you introduced me, man, like I can't even tell you how excited I was. Like I've been like introduced over the mic in snowboarding contests, but that was a whole different level for me. That was like, oh man, like this is like a defining moment.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really honored for you to say that. I mean, I know like, guys like you guys are getting your start in your MMA careers, whether it be an amateur or you're like a new pro coming up. Like I do my very best and I take pride in like making you guys sound like $1 million, you know. And
Awesome.
like I'm always honored to introduce you.
Man, hey, and I'm not just shooting smoke up your ass. To be honest, I mean, like I was fortunate enough. We'll get into this in a bit, but I was at UFC 200,
Mm.
and listening to the Buffer do it. I mean, honestly, Ryan, you're right up there, brother. I mean, you're doing your thing, and it won't be long before the big leagues are calling you too. So,
That, much respect. Thank you so much, Paul. I mean,
hey, man,
it,
if Buffer blows out another knee, they might be calling you fast, right?
who knows, man? Like, I mean, like, I have so much respect for Bruce. Like, my dream one day is is to rival him, right? I think I could. We'll see.
Totally. The torch
But
has got to get passed.
yeah, I hope so. I mean, I started getting into this ring announcing game when I was 23 years old, and I'm 28 now. So, and I think is he pushing 60 now? Do you know?
Yeah, something like that. He's definitely up there, but he's still killing it.
So
It's
like
awesome.
if he's pushing 60 and I'm just getting into my 30s now, like I can only imagine where I would be in his age.
Well, exactly, and it really. I mean, what does it boil down to? It boils down to longevity, especially with a gig like that. Any great announcer, Rogan, Goldie, Buffer, any of those guys, you just have to be in the game long enough, and all of a sudden you hit that point where everybody knows who you are, and that's the best part. It's just it's almost like art in a way.
Yeah. I mean, like I like to look at it that way too. I mean, I would watch some of my videos of myself introducing guys, and I would be like, I could like enunciate his name better, or I could say something a little bit slower, you know.
I like that. It's good. It's an analytical mind.
Mm-hmm. Like I do remember your fight with Mitch though. Like that was a lot of fun, and hopefully like if the powers that be can make it happen again, or like maybe your paths will one day cross again. Who knows, right?
Totally, totally, and that was the really great part about, and hats off to Mitch. It was a good fight, and even in the back, we bumped fists on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really upset that I lost. I was more pissed at myself because I knew I could have done a lot better. But I didn't wish him any ill will. We shook at the end, and he even said, "Hey man, like love the fight. Let's do it again if you want." So I figure why not? If I'm ever gonna call him out, I guess I might as well do it on your show. So I
Or
mean, to be honest with you, man, like I'm not trying to be a professional in mixed martial arts. I really enjoy training. It's something that I hope to eventually teach one day when
mm-hmm.
when I reach that level. That would be my ultimate goal. But I just love competing and the whole experience. It was just phenomenal. And hats off to BFL. I mean, they put on a very, very professional league, and I think that's super important, especially with the landscape of mixed martial arts where it's at. It won't be a matter of time before they're really bringing up a lot of strong talent. Maybe we can even segue this into the recent signings. I'm sure you probably already aware of
Oh
Ryan.
yeah.
Oh,
Ryan James. Yeah.
yeah. Any word on if Jeremy Kennedy's getting signed?
Um, I don't like. I personally haven't heard anything from anyone like valuable, like to give me like that kind of knowledge. I mean,
Mm.
we're all crossing our fingers and hoping that for those that don't know, Jeremy Kennedy is like one of the top MMA fighters. He's a featherweight, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he actually trains at a Revolution as well. So that's
Hmm.
why I'm curious, because I mean, man, if he's not on the front runner of the list in that weight class, he should be. I hope the UFC has their eyeball on him in some sort, because he's going to be big.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, there's like a very handful of guys that I would say that, like, with all respect to all the fighters and everything, but like, just like in any sport, whether you're a basketball player or a hockey player or baseball, whatever, like there's a handful of guys that are special.
Yes.
Like legitimately special, and they could take their careers to the next level. Jeremy Kennedy, for those that don't know, he's considered one of the best featherweights in Canada outside of the UFC,
Hmm.
right? And I fully like support and believe that, like, he deserves to be in the upcoming Vancouver card, right alongside Brian James. But whether it takes like a few more fights or anything like that, like, he deserves to be in that conversation for sure.
Oh, no, no, and I'm sure Joe Silva's no slouch. I'm sure that him and his team probably have heard of Jeremy before, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time. So but best of luck to any of those guys that get signed. I think it's phenomenal, and I mean I'll sure be watching and cheering when they comes to Vancouver. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, like, for me, like as like a professional ring announcer, like in the cage and stuff, like I'm not supposed to have any favorites at all. Like I consider everyone that comes into that cage, blue corner, red corner, you or Mitch Burke, like you guys are all my homies, and like, I do my best to, like, give you everything that I have so that I can watch you guys give everything you have into that cage.
Oh, absolutely. I
Right?
totally hear what you're saying. I mean, we'd all be kidding ourselves at the same time if, all the times that Bruce Buffer has introduced Anderson the Spider Silva, that he probably didn't get just a slight extra tinge of excitement in his voice,
Mm-hmm.
at those greats that you have the great pleasure to see fight, especially up close, from your perspective must be, I kind of always think about that, to be honest, like how, the perspective from the referee and the announcer and everyone that's right up close and even getting inside the cage when shit's about to hit the fan, it must
Yeah.
be a very unique experience from your guys' perspective as well.
It never gets boring. It's I think for me personally, like no matter how old I get, no matter how many fights I've introduced, like I'll always get like this tingly feeling where like my hair stands on end, and like it just feels like the biggest deal in the world to me at that moment.
That's awesome. That's
Right?
awesome.
Like there have been numerous times, like I've told this to very few people, but like there have been numerous times where, like, the main event is about to start, like the music's blaring, like all the people like came out to support and everything like that. My
Mhm.
hair's standing on end, and like, I feel like a tear like legit come out of my eye. I'm like, this is unreal shit, man. And like, I feel like in order for like this moment to live up to its hype, I gotta bring it.
That's awesome. That's
Right?
awesome. I love hearing
Yeah,
that.
like, because like outside of like ring announcing, like way before I ever put on a suit, I've always been a fight fan since I was a kid,
That's awesome. That's
right?
awesome.
Like my dad and my grandpa, like, they like to watch Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield fight.
Oh, totally. That was like me growing up too, man. I remember watching those fights with my grandfather, and yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Like,
Quick, I
sorry,
have a
go on.
question for you. Do you like growing up? Right? Did you train anything at all, or you just always been a big fan?
I've actually trained a little bit. Like, I mean, like, I wouldn't even consider myself like on like amateur level or anything, but like growing up, like my grandpa taught me how to box.
Oh, okay.
And also, like, I learned how to do Muay Thai and kickboxing. Like I actually trained at like WKX for a little bit with the Johnsy family, right?
Nice.
So like, I have a little bit of a background from that. And actually, like, do you know who Christian Alart is? You tra
Yeah. Well, yeah. He trains at Revolution. Yeah.
He trains at Revolution now?
I think I'm not really sure. I don't want to speak out of school, but I do see those guys that come through, and I think it depends on when the open mats are. So I shouldn't say that he trains either. I don't know if
I think he's at Budo, but he used to be part of West Coast.
yeah.
Like just a part of West Coast. But anyways,
Yeah, I still remember from the West Coast days. I mean, honestly, I remember watching. I remember going to the early BFL fights when he was fighting in there too, and I always thought that I always looked at him and thought, man, that kid is so brave, because he's not like an overly imposing figure, but man, that kid can fight his ass off.
yeah, yeah. I like watching guys like that.
Yeah, me too. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Like, I mean, I for some reason, like, I gravitate to guys that have like sort of these quote unquote weird body types. Like if you look at, say, I don't know, like a Nick Diaz. He has like a sort of like a triathlon's type body. It's not overly muscular, but not really skinny either,
Yeah, man.
right?
Yeah, totally.
Or like one of my personal heroes, because like I'm a little bit pudgy myself. I like watching guys like Mark Hunt.
Oh, totally, totally.
Oh,
Mark Hunt's the baddest man on the planet.
100%. Like, and let's segue into that. You were in Vegas for UFC 200, yes?
I was, man. It was just a phenomenal experience. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. For me, I mean, I wasn't down. I wasn't down there for fight week or anything like that. I know a lot of local guys were down there, competing in different things. But I actually just scored really lucky. I ended up winning a Bud Light trip, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was just like total dumb luck. I just entered this like text in to win thing, and I never win anything, man. So I was so pumped, and it just worked out really well. It was free flight, free hotel, and tickets to the event. So I'm not gonna pass up watching all those fights live. It was pretty awesome.
Get the fuck out. You actually won something from Bud Light?
Yeah, dude, it was. Like I said, I never enter anything. I never win anything, and just I can't remember why, but I just like entered it, and for whatever reason I won, and it was just it was pretty crazy, and it was kind of the cherry on top because I actually found out like a day or two before that I was going to be a dad. So it
Oh,
was,
congratulations, Paul.
thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it worked out really well. It was just super awesome week and everything. So yeah.
Essentially, it's like, the universe itself working itself out, right?
In more ways you could possibly imagine. There's so much stuff's going on in life right now. My girlfriend and I got engaged as well. So
Oh, another congratulations.
thank you. No, thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's good. Yeah, life's funny, man. When it comes at you, it comes at you hard and fast.
That's awesome, man. So UFC 200, I mean, like, it's already passed, and a lot of smoke is cleared. Like,
And,
so much has happened. So much
yeah,
has happened since the UFC 200. Like, the UFC officially announced like its sale. John
yeah.
Jones got kicked off the card.
I
Brock
love.
Lesnar failed two piss tests.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get your take on this because I mean, you and I had seen a couple things going on Facebook, and that's actually how we got in touch about doing your show. And I've been watching this very closely because it's interesting to me how a lot of people are very quick to have a knee-jerk reaction to a lot of stuff, but they don't want to wait to hear what the full side of the story is at the same time. Now, having said that, don't get me wrong, I'm not like advocating any of this stuff. I just find it hilarious that a lot of people aren't really educated in how this stuff goes down. And if they're not, I mean, they really should listen to some of the podcasts that are out there because there's a ton of knowledge out there that can really explain it down for people.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but like I like to purposely post these articles out there with
Yes.
with not much like commentary. It's just like ha 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 and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Well, to be honest with you, I post that stuff so I can see what people are saying about it because I don't really know much about it.
Well, I figured as much. I saw what you're doing. You're crafty that way. I like it.
Thank you. Like, I mean, like, I don't know the whole like Lesnar situation. Like, I heard like the big speculation is he has asthma.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it all really depends on your take on it. I mean, I've listened to everyone from Rogan's input on it to Brennan Schaub, all these different guys. Everyone right down to the Jeff Nowitzki, the head of USADA, that does, or pardon me, the Nevada State Athletic Commission that does all this. It all really depends on your perception on how it's going down. I think it's really silly to assume that these guys are trying to cheat, especially the athletes, when they know that they're testing with blood and urine, and they've already been.
Hmm.
Can't cheat the test, so why bother? And you look at the amount of athletes that we've seen that clearly have gone clean, and you can see a radical difference in not only their appearance but their performance. I
Hmm.
mean, but it gets really slippery when you actually get into the science of this stuff. And I mean, believe me, I'm no expert in this, but from what I've listened, what I can understand of this, there's a big list of banned substances. So when they say banned substances, it's not always saying steroids, and that's what people are misunderstanding. But at the same time, there is the argument that it very well could be that these guys are using certain stuff, such as John Jones's case, as possibly masking agents for cycling off of the stuff. So it all really depends on who you ask, I find.
Yeah, oh man, John Jones's story is crazy. You obviously heard that podcast that Joe Rogan had with Chael Sonnen, right?
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah, I was rated on.
I wonder how much of that story is true about John Jones hiding in a cage underneath a cage for 8 hours.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you've been in this industry for a minute. I mean, what do you think? I mean, fighters are crazy people, man. I mean, do you really think that's out of the realm of possible? Because I don't.
I don't think it is, man. Like I've seen like a lot of crazy shit. Like even before like the days of the commission,
Yeah.
like man, like I've been there for the Wild West, man. I've been to events where I'm I don't like a lot of people know who I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna say it directly on air. But like there've been like I've been the cards where like guys have been picked out of the crowd minutes before the fights they're gonna start.
No, I understand. I understand. And like you said, it's the Wild West. I mean, and I'll give you a relational example. I mean, coming from my background with snowboarding, it is not uncommon that would happen in snowboarding. A high level guy would be at a contest and he's not necessarily into the pro ranks yet, but because
Hmm.
he's here and he's ready to go, and if a guy gets injured, it wasn't uncommon for them to bump a guy in just to fill the slot, and a lot of times that guy would go on to win.
Oh
So
shit.
it literally is the Wild West in a lot of ways. I mean, especially when it boils down to athletics on an extreme level, you'd be very surprised what people are capable of pulling off when they're in that flow state. It's a
Wow.
whole level, in my opinion. And to go back to the whole thing about banned substances, even in snowboarding, we had this. There was, most of your listeners will never have, heard this guy, but there was a guy named Chad Otterstrom who, back when snowboarding was first getting into the Olympics, he actually was told straight up that he would not be allowed to even go to the qualifiers for the Olympics because he has to medically take Adderall as
Holy
a
shit.
condition. And they're like, sorry, that's a performance-enhancing drug. You can't even qualify. And this guy would have for sure won the halfpipe if he had been able to compete, but he wasn't even allowed to.
Adderall helps with your focus, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've never taken it, but everything I've heard and read about it, yeah, it is meant for certain people that have ADHD in various forms. But
Man.
it goes to show you the banned substance list is very long and very in depth on what they cover. I mean, you can't take Advil, you can't take NyQuil. There's certain people don't understand when they're saying that this person was tested positive for a banned substance. It's not always indicating high level steroids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, like I mean, I'm not like in the back very often and stuff before the fights and all that kind of stuff, and I don't necessarily fully understand like how the amateur system works here in BC. But like, do they P test you?
Oh yeah, that was
Oh,
actually that
nice.
was one of the things with Battlefield Fight League that I was very impressed with, to be honest. Is that Jay and those guys are very much on top of getting all your medicals done. It was
Wow.
a no fuck around situation. They were like, we need this in by this day. You got to go see your doctor, get this paperwork in, get your blood work done. Like, the whole thing, P test blood, the whole thing. Mind you, after it leaves me and the doctor, I don't know what they're testing. I don't know the cost of the test. I don't know what they're doing with it. I don't know if they do test it, but I do know what went down. I know they test you for the diseases and anything like that. But as far as what else they test you for, I have no idea.
Wow, that's really cool. I actually had no idea that they piss test on the Emmy level.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I figured it was the case, and no problem with me.
I'm glad because like I remember before the commission we've had fights like I said, they picked the guy out the crowd. Who knows what he could have been on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I remember like a few years ago I worked a fight. I was in the back just talking to a friend, like I was outside, and
Mm-hmm.
like I smell some weed in the air, right?
Right.
And like I'm walking around the corner. The dude smoking a joint is the guy fighting in the main event.
Nice.
Right? And I look at him and he looks at me. He's like, "Don't tell anyone." I'm like,
Nice.
I don't know shit. All right. I'm going to go into the cage, pretend I didn't see and smell what happened."
Well, I mean, man, okay, let's look at it from the professional standpoint. I mean, Nick Diaz. Do you need
Yeah.
to say more? I mean, it's not saying that he's fighting high, but clearly he's training high. And I mean, people can say all they want about it not being a performance enhancing substance, or it is. I think once again, it all really depends on who you ask. I think it's a matter of the person. For some people, that's going to help. For some people, it's definitely not going to help.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, uh, I can, like, I guess I'll openly admit it. This is the first time I've ever told anyone this on air. So, like, I used to, like, at this other gym I used to train at, these guys used to train baked all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? They used to get stoned, like, a half hour before a training session.
Yeah.
And like I remember walk by and they're like, "Ryan, you want to come blaze?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. That doesn't seem like such a good idea before class. Like, just try it, try a little." I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna try it once." Right? I did it, And the whole time I was in the gym, I'm just like hitting this bag and doing drills and everything. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I was a zombie the entire time.
Yeah, and that has always been the knock on it. Is from what I have read, a lot of people, medical professionals, seem to say it does not necessarily help your ability to learn things, but it can relax tensions, which can help you learn. It all Once again, it all goes back to who you're asking, who you're talking to. I can relate to what you're saying in the story, especially in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community. I don't think it's any big secret that a lot of guys will smoke right before they roll.
Yeah.
Not doing drills, but because they do find that when they're flow rolling, you do get more creative, and it does help. I mean, I'll be quite honest with you. I mean, the snowboard industry. I mean, come on. I mean, you talk about roster baghdadi. What goes hand in hand with that? Everybody associates him with pot, right? But
Yeah.
even in the high level pros that do all the tricks and everything and the spins and flips in the backcountry, it is not uncommon to see those guys burning a big one down right before they drop into a 100-foot jump. So yeah,
100-foot jump and you're just stoned out of your mind.
yeah, but once again, it all depends on who you're talking to. I mean, I'm sure you've heard on Rogan's show, they were talking about endurance athletes. Sorry, the guy's name is escaping me. The bow hunter that's been on his show.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. That name has slipped my mind, but yeah, go on, go on.
Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. It'll come to me in a minute. People are probably yelling at this right now because they know who I'm talking about. But they're talking about studies that find that endurance athletes are really finding great benefits with marijuana right before they compete, because they feel that it allows them to shut down that pain receptor part of their brain, and they can push through.
Maybe eliminates like a little bit of the fear of that big jump too, huh?
Yeah, Cameron Haynes, that was the gentleman's name I was thinking of.
Cool, cool.
Great podcast too. I think it's called Keep Hammering, which is really good.
Yeah, it's a new podcast that
Yeah,
just came out.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I always, any chance to get, I always try to like plug those guys' show because I think it's really important.
Hmm.
I think it's great what they're doing.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, man, like it's I don't know, like just like you said, like marijuana, like it could be a performance enhancer depending on who you're asking.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is coffee a performance enhancer? Of course. Lots of things. Cigarettes are performance enhancers, whether people want to admit it or not. Obviously they have health deterrents to them, but the chewing nicotine gum is absolutely shown to be a performance enhancer.
It's actually strange. Like I've heard like a few guys, they like to chew tobacco or chew nicotine gum. Like a few fighters that I've heard of.
Because the nicotine high is very real. I can
Wow.
attest. When I was younger, I smoked a little bit, and I don't anymore. But I definitely have noticed a definite effect in chewing nicotine gum, especially if I'm going on a long bike ride.
Hmm.
Uh, man, like if you got a piece of nicotine gum going and a good playlist in your headphones, oh man, you can like really get going.
No, I find like just a simple good cup of black coffee like really gets me zooted too.
Oh, totally, totally,
I,
absolutely.
I don't know, like we're both like you're in much better shape than I am. And how old are you, Paul?
I'll be 34 in October.
Okay, very soon, very soon. Like so I'm just a
Yeah.
few years younger than you.
Man,
But
I'm an old dog as far as like just getting my toes wet in MMA. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm almost 34. With a kid on the way. I mean, I still love to compete. I definitely want to compete a couple more times.
mhm.
But yeah, I mean, my level of crazy is definitely scaled back slightly these
Yeah, of
days.
course, right? Like, the older you get and you're gonna get married soon, you're having a child on the way, right?
Yeah.
But like,
But but
sorry, go on.
I find it's not. You gotta keep in mind too. It's not that I've always been in great shape. I haven't. To be honest with you, my personal story is I actually found jujitsu when I was actually really out of shape. I had stopped snowboarding and had gotten a couple injuries, and I was drinking a lot of beer, just shitty diet, and
Mhm.
man, I ballooned up to like almost 230 odd pounds.
Wow.
When I got into jiu-jitsu, I got pictures that are like you wouldn't even think it's the same person. And I shredded right down to 170 pounds within like 9 months of jiu-jitsu.
That is awesome, Paul.
Thank you, but you know what? It was. I have to be completely honest. Where the motivation came from, 100%. And I know it sounds super cheesy, but it was Rogan's podcast. I literally discovered that show, and I've listened to, what are they at, 124 episodes or 824 episodes? I've literally listened to every single one. And for most of those hours that I listened to the earlier ones, it was when I was on the treadmill just sweating it out, trying to shred off these pounds because I was just so, disappointed with the shape I had gotten into. And my story is not unusual though. If you listen to his show, man, a lot of people have done the exact same thing, lost 50 pounds. I mean, he talks about it all the time, the amount of people that come up to him and say, "You changed my life."
That is that is really awesome. Like the Rogan's podcast is really like changed my life too in a way. Like I mean, a big chunk of the podcast that I do, it's influenced by his style.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And to be honest with you, when we spoke, on text, and you told me, it's very much kind of, I try to do it like Rogan's show where it's unedited and it is what it is. You're going to put it out there. And that's what really sold me on it is, because there's a lot of other podcasts out there and a lot of people are trying to monetize this and that and the next thing. And man, it should be free and it should be just a normal conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the ads and all that, I get it. I mean, everyone's got to pay for the bandwidth and the advertising. I get that, but it's like the way you can do it is so much better than conventional radio. We would never get a chance to have a conversation like this on the FM channels. It just wouldn't happen.
Well, just like an honest conversation too. Like one of my favorite episodes is when Rogan had Jay Leno on the show. Did you like that one?
Yeah, it was interesting because my dad's a car guy, so I listened to it, and Jay's a very fascinating character. I've always been very interested by him.
Well, what I really liked about listening to Jay Leno, because like I grew up like many people watching Jay Leno on the Late Tonight Show and stuff, and like to hear him talk about like how he felt about the format of it, like he said that it got really tiring because like now like people are going to his show with like a motive and things like that, and like no one was having like honest conversations anymore, and essentially it was like an advertisement the entire time you're watching it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think you could kind of see that in the way he was doing the show towards the end. You could see that it's not the same look on his face as it probably was back in the day.
Yeah, totally. And like I actually went to watch a taping of the Conan O'Brien show back in April. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love Conan.
Me
He's
too.
my favorite of all of them.
Me too. Like I really liked like obviously like you could tell like when the guests and stuff like are there, but like for the most part like I feel like he's actually still having fun. It was really neat going to the taping cuz like right after the show goes off air, he gets the mic himself. He starts telling like jokes from the top of his head and he starts serenading the crowd.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've always noticed about Conan specifically is that he doesn't seem, because they show a lot of him when he's just being candid and normal, and he doesn't strike me as a guy that has a big ego.
Yeah.
Seems like a guy who's very much down to earth. He's like, look, like I just got famous, and this is what it is. But I'm a regular guy. He never seems to come across like a dick. Whereas you hear a lot of other stories of these other guys where it's like, I kind of wonder sometimes.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, again, man, like one of the great benefits about this podcast is, over the years, like in my different, like I have my hand in like all kinds of different industries. Like, you already know I have my hand in the fight game as a ring announcer, and full time I work as a social media marketer, and my other job is like I have my hand in like electronic music events, right? So like I have my hand in a little bit of different everything.
Yeah, I
Uh,
knew about the music part because I have some friends that follow you in that as well. So I
oh
kind of knew the
wow.
bridge gap there as well. So that's awesome, man. I like hearing that. You got your fingers in a bunch of things. That's good.
Well, that's how I've always been like growing up. Like I always found that like I got bored of like things like really easily. And like,
Mhm.
I have like too many passions. I mean, like that's just how I like it. Like I like hearing like people like with different dimensions too. Like you're into martial arts and you come from a, snowboarding background. Like that's pretty diverse, man.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that, and it's one of those things I don't think a lot of people really in the martial arts side don't really know that that's where my background comes from. But not that they have any giant crossover. I don't think so because if it did, you'd see a lot more guys getting into it. But it's just where my background came from. I've always been a competitive person. I mean, I played hockey growing up as well. I played a bunch of different sports, but I've always seemed to gravitate towards things that seem to be very hard to do. And I don't know. I think it's kind of in my DNA. My dad was a semi-pro race car driver and turned pro.
Wow.
He lives down in California, and he's in his late 60s now, and he still is competitive and still win races. So I think it's just in the blood.
Man, that's awesome. Now, going back, like you said, you grew up playing hockey, you did the snowboarding thing, you're now doing MMA. Like, you're doing all of these very physical and hard to do sports. Like, out of all the sports that you've done, where have you got injured the most?
Phew. Well, snowboarding without a doubt, because I did it for so long, and just those injuries are just gonna compile. I've broken my nose 9 times, and you wouldn't think it looking at my handsome face, but to be honest with you, yeah, I broke my nose 9 times, and only one of them was from a punch, and it wasn't even when it was actually a fight in roller hockey, believe it or not.
Whoa.
I took a skateboard to the face by accident. That sucked. And then the rest of them were actually putting my knee into my face from overshooting jumps and snowboarding.
Wow.
Which is very common. I blew my chin open. I've cracked teeth off,
Holy
black,
shit.
all that kind of stuff. In snowboarding, you'd be surprised, man. You watch any of the bail footage of, any major snowboard video, people can see what the carnage is like. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, getting knocked out with a head kick is still a whole nother thing. But flying 120 feet past the landing of the 100-foot jump that you meant to go, believe me, it gets pretty rough to watch.
That takes a special sack of nuts, man.
Well, it does, but it's very much calculated risk. So you get really good at assessing whether shit is worth doing or if it's worth walking away. Yeah, walked away from a lot of jumps where I'm like, it's just not worth it. But I've also done stuff that has scared the holy piss out of me, and there's no better feeling on earth than sticking something that you didn't think you could do.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother feeling, especially when you get an amazing photo out of it or a video shot, and you walk away feeling like you want to fight.
Wow.
That's the only relation I can give you. I mean, I don't even know what it feels like to win an actual mixed martial arts fight, to be honest. I lost mine, and to be honest, I still felt like I won because I felt like I performed. I performed not necessarily to the best of my abilities, but I got in there, and I I wasn't afraid to get in there. I wasn't afraid to make that walk.
Are you planning on making that walk again very soon?
Man, I'd love to, but it's definitely a dream of mine, and I hope I can do it. Just life comes at you fast, and with everything going on, we'll see how it goes. But
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be the first guy. My girlfriend's giving me the most evil look right now.
Well,
Not anytime soon. To be honest, I just really enjoy training right now.
nice.
I still believe in sharpening the sword every day, so to speak, and just trying to get better and stay sharp as an athlete. But if the opportunity ever arose again, I definitely would love to take another shot. But I don't feel it's not like I'm too old or anything like that. I still got lots of miles left in me, so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will tell.
Well, you know what? This is actually an interesting thing too that I'm gonna ask you because like it's not too often that we have on record a guy with firsthand experience fighting in a cage, and like that was their only experience, right? Like this was your first and only experience fighting in a cage, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So for people like that are thinking about giving that a try, like how what was it like for you? Like what was it like preparing? Like how long was your camp and like, how much time would you dedicate to that like a week?
Awesome question. Okay. First and foremost, if I could say anything to any young guy that's thinking about, wanting to compete in mixed martial arts, first off, think long and hard about, are you okay with getting punched in the face? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's boiling down to. You can grapple all you want, but at the end of the day, if you're not willing to take a punch to the face, it's going to be a very short night, and it's not going to go well. If you're okay with taking a shot and you think you can handle it, then move forward with it. The best advice I can give anybody is do not overtrain. And it sounds so simple, but I was a victim of it. Obviously, a lot of guys are, especially when you start out. A lot of guys have the tendency to just try to do too much. In hindsight now, I wish I would have gone about it a lot smarter and not tried to kill my body so much into it.
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, going into that fight, I had really messed up my right shoulder just days before. Not days before, about a week before, to the point where it was really hard to throw my right hand. I was going for acupuncture and all sorts of stuff right up to the fight. Which no excuse, but it did have a contributing factor in everything. But that was my fault from overtraining. If I had gone about it a bit smarter, I probably could have had a better result. So that would be my advice: is don't overtrain, but you got to have a camp. You gotta know what it's like to be uncomfortable. You got to know what it's like to get your ass kicked, and you got to know what it's like to get back up and keep doing it round after round.
Wow. So like the fight was at 165-pound catch weight, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Mitch
So,
is he was a bit taller than me, so I think the weight cut was a bit more for him. I pretty much walk around at 170, so
okay, so it wasn't that bad of a weight cut for you.
no, I actually purposely cut a bit more weight because my teammate Colin Constantine, the big tall giant from Ireland, who won his fight first round submission, and he broke his foot right before that too.
Oh shit.
And he still won, which was amazing. Yeah, he had to cut quite a bit of weight to make the 190 weight class that he was fighting at. So I actually cut down. I think I officially weighed in at like 156 or no, probably wasn't that. It was like 150 somewhere, high 150s. But I wanted to see if I could get down around 155, which I knew I wouldn't have an issue with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like how much did you, well, because like you said you didn't really cut much, like how much did your diet change, and how much did you like separate things like strength and conditioning and like grappling and all that?
You know, like I said, looking back now, I wish I would have structured it quite a bit differently. In what I've read, I definitely think doing strength and conditioning, I think should take paramount in your training camp leading up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, you should be sharpening all the skills, grappling, striking, all that stuff. But from what I've read and what I've seen, it seems to be you want to have your engine in the best shape possible leading up to a fight. So, but my experience with it was I just tried to train everything as often as possible, and I literally burnt my body out doing it. So, I was trying to do 2-a-days, and I was doing road work, and I was trying to do stairs and all that kind of stuff, and your body just can't keep up at a certain point. You're just gonna start breaking down.
Mm. And like your nutrition, like because you didn't cut that much weight, like did you have like a special diet going into this fight, or were you just like eating sort of the same but healthy? Or
Yeah, you nailed it pretty much right there. Is it really just upping your water intake? You're drinking liters and liters of water a day, and you're just eating clean, eating healthy. I was kind of doing the chicken, quinoa, veggies. We'd mix it up. My girlfriend's a great cook, so we would mix it up with everything. I had some steak in there. You got to have all your essentials, but you basically want to eat clean. It's really not rocket science if you jump on the internet. I mean, all you got to do is Google search like Dolce diet, and it'll give you some pointers. I mean, it's easier than it's ever been. I think for athletes, there's really zero excuse for having poor nutrition before a fight.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's just the simple things. I mean, don't drink beer leading up to it. Like, just gotta cut out. Just you gotta be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's why like that, like you guys are willing to like do all that, man, like to make sure that you're in the optimum shape to compete and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but
um
it's like everyone that's done it will tell you it's not necessarily fun. It sucks.
yeah.
But it's a sacrifice. It's what you got to do to get there, especially if you got to make weight. It's a game of inches, quite literally, for some guys. The best advice I would say too is, and you're starting to see a lot more of it in the professional level now, is don't cut so much weight. Guys shouldn't be trying to suck down 25 pounds. I mean, guys can do it, but I don't think it's healthy.
Well, it's good that the game is changing, like not just like on the pro level, like how the UFC now they're having like the really early weigh-ins, like the 10 a.m. weigh-ins now.
So awesome, so awesome. You're seeing a huge difference in the way the fighters look and perform.
Yeah, like look at like what happened to Johnny Hendricks. Like, he missed weight and he looked like shit.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met the guy, and I don't want to speak bad of him, but
Yeah.
from what I've heard, it just sounds like that's a lack of discipline.
Yeah. No,
So
no, no
don't leave
disres. Yeah.
that weight.
No disrespect to Johnny Hendricks. I didn't mean like to sound really bad, but like,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like he just didn't look like, the champion Johnny Hendricks like
Yeah,
before.
well, and I mean, let's throw it out on the table because I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this will probably be saying the same thing. I mean, could he potentially be one of those guys that suddenly looks a whole lot different physically now that the testing has been, ramped up? I don't know. You tell me, but sometimes the results speak for themselves.
100%, I agree. Now, going back to like, your experience, like, we discussed, the training regimen that you went through. We discussed nutrition and all that. So what is it like when you walked into the building on fight night? Like, you're walking to the locker room, you're about to get your hands wrapped, you're getting changed. Like, how you feeling at this point?
My personal experience with it was it doesn't get scary up until you start making the walk up the stairs and you hear your music that you picked for your walkout song come on. That's when shit gets real. Everything leading up was like it's nervous energy, and to be honest, I tried to put myself mentally in the spots that I'd been at in snowboarding contests,
That's right.
which were to be honest were terrifying. When you're competing in a bigger contest and it's in the middle of the night and you've got all these spotlights and TV cameras looking at you and people cheering, it's nerve wracking, man. It's very, very crazy. You're watching all these guys spin and flip and launch themselves crazy distances. It's scary, but I just tried to put my mind into that spot and be like, you've been here before. It's just a different kind of thing. Having said that, obviously, as soon as I got up to the stairs and I do the walkout, I mean, I'm just as much a newbie as anybody else. Nothing can prepare you for that. The only thing you can do is just don't. You'd be lying if you said you weren't afraid, because everyone's afraid going into it. But you can't act afraid. You have to just be like, all right, we're doing this.
Now, okay, so at this point now, you're in the cage. I'm introducing you, and now like the bell rings. You guys touch gloves.
Yeah.
When you like get that first shot off on him, and then he gets you, and you taste that first strike. How are you feeling at that point? Is the adrenaline rush going in? Like you don't feel it? You don't notice anything?
Once again, from my experience was honestly everything slowed down. It's kind of that time dilation thing that they talk about in books like The Rise of Superman, where it's that flow state moment that you enter where everything started going in slow motion right before the fight started. I can vividly remember looking at you, Brian, like right in the eyeballs as you were announcing my name. And that was the only time I took my eyes off of Mitch Burke, was when you announced my name. I kind of gave a little point out to the crowd, and then my eyes went right back to looking at him. And him and I were looking at each other, even before he walked in the cage. It's just a very, very strange feeling when you're about to scrap with another dude, and that's why you're there. So, like I said, kudos to Mitch. I mean, he'd been there, 8 times previous to me, so he brought it, and that's what I was looking for. And the moments leading into the fight, like I said, it's like it all slows down. The biggest thing I remember is you can hear everything. It's so quiet. All you can hear is the bouncing around of the mats and the boards underneath the cage, and you can kind of hear a couple people talking, but it's dead quiet in there. You hear everything.
Wow. Man, I got goosebumps thinking about that, just because like, I'm right there. I see everything that you guys are doing, but to hear it from your perspective, like the first time you've ever walked down that cage, that's crazy, man. That takes some real guts.
Thank you. Like I said, it was the best. Is one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life as far as athletics go. It was scary as hell, man. But anything that's worth doing is going to be terrifying. I wish I'd performed better. But like I said, you can't go off that. You gotta look at the mistakes you made, learn from them, and figure out how you're going to do it better the next time.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's an awesome experience, and I hope you do, like, when you decide to like go back into that cage. I hope I'm the guy to introduce you again.
Ah, man, I sure hope so. If I'm ever gonna get a chance to do it again, I definitely would want to do it on in BFL. And like I said, I mean, for me personally, I'd only really like to fight, once more. Really, I'm just looking to go out on a win. That way, I know what it's like to win. I know what it's like to lose. and I'm not trying to go pro past that. And in BC rules, you know, your first 3 amateur fights are the set amateur rules, and then after that you can move up to pro, and after that it's getting into a whole nother ball game. So you know, I'm very aware of CTE and all that kind of stuff these days. So you gotta know when it's time. But you know, having said that, I'm still very much wanting to get back in there and try it again. If I could ever do it again, I think it would be kind of hilarious to fight the same guy I lost to.
That'd be great. That'd be really good. I don't know if he has another fight coming up. He's a good guy too. Nice guy.
Yeah, he is, and you know, I knew a little bit about him before the fight too. I knew he snowboarded. He's up in the Okanagan and all that. So you know, he seems like a super good guy. I'm sure if we lived close to each other, we'd probably be training partners.
It's isn't it kind of interesting, like because like we're in the local fight community, like even though like you guys compete each other against each other, you guys like are fighting against each other, like there's
Yeah.
still that like sort that camaraderie there.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's super important. You know, I mean, obviously it's still a fight game. I mean, you're not, you know, rivalries are real sometimes, and some guys really don't like each other. But
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think Mitch got that too. You know, going into it, even at the weigh-ins, you know, we had a pretty intense stare down and all that. But you know, at the end of it, it was business. At the end of the night, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, like, that's actually really cool. So we basically went through like the entire experience of someone's first MMA fight ever,
Yeah, yeah.
and we don't normally get to hear that like on record anywhere.
But you know, the big thing about that whole experience is the loss. You know, like John Kavanaugh has a great book out right now called, you know, Win or Learn, and it's all, that's his whole thing is it's all a matter of how you view it in your mind. There is no losing if you choose to learn from it.
Yeah, that's really wise.
Deep hippie shit, right?
That is great. That's beautiful.
No, but it's the truth. I mean, like, you know, not to take it back to snowboarding again, but that's how I approach snowboarding. You're not going to learn, you know, a 360 when you're 12 years old the first time around. You're going to have to do it 800 times before you land it even once, and then you're just at the start of, okay, now I got to figure out how to do that every time. You know, repetition counts for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's you can either, you know, I saw a lot of guys that could have been really great at snowboarding that just quit because they didn't have the ability to stick with it.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Like like even like in the fight game, like I've seen like a lot of guys like come from the amateur ranks, like like you would know like that they're a beast and everything like that, but then when the lights are on, it's like something just wouldn't click.
Man, you know, like this is a great way to pump one of my good friends and a former teammate, Connor Thompson. I'm pretty sure you probably called his BFL fight.
Yes,
But
yes, I have.
I've trained with Connor for a bunch of years now. I made a trip over to Thailand with him. I watched him compete. That kid is an absolute beast in the gym. But the question was always, how is he going to perform under the big lights? And it was really phenomenal to see him not only win in Thailand, you know, to see him win it, you know, in the cage like he did, and kind of really make his mark. He had a first round KO that was just spectacular. I mean, you know, that's another kid that people don't know. You know, he's gonna explode on the scene real quick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you're obviously a big MMA fan too, or just a fight fan in general. Who are some of the guys that you like to watch or have liked to watch?
Oh man, you know, I mean, you can list off all the who's who of the pros, but one of my favorites to watch is Demian Maia.
Ah, yes.
Jitsu is just on another level, obviously, and he's a very smart guy. He's actually a journalist, and he's very well read, very well educated, and he's very. I've always found it interesting. Even though I really don't know shit about fighting in comparison to him, it seems like he's one of those guys that has figured out a way how to evolve his game, because he wasn't necessarily great at striking when he got into the UFC, and we've seen his,
Yeah.
you know, but his jiu-jitsu has always been his bread and butter, and it's really another level to watch. I mean, when a guy can control Gunnar Nelson the way he did, I mean, whew, that's a dangerous man.
Very dangerous. And the crazy thing is, like, I'm sure. Are you psyched to see? Like, he's gonna be fighting in Vancouver like next month.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is going to be one of the greatest fights ever.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, this whole card's like becoming it's not very like it's not very like entertaining, and then like they announce that main event, and all of a sudden people want to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, people are always going to complain about, if it's a saturated market and all that, but I don't think so. I mean, if you're a real fan, I mean, this is the best time ever for mixed martial arts. There's so much, so many of them that are free on TV or you can get on Fight Pass. It's a great time to be watching all this. It's just a matter of who you're following that counts.
So
But
you're so
thinking back to the original question, I mean, who do I really like? Who do I enjoy watching?
yeah.
Conor McGregor, obviously, I think the way he moves is phenomenal. Nate Diaz, obviously, is like, man, he did much more than that. It's the same as his brother Nick. I always thought that those guys are great. Their boxing too is just phenomenal, and the fact that they're triathletes and the whole 9 yards. I think it's really cool that they have a well-rounded background. Yeah, I mean the list goes on, but yeah, there's so many good guys. But to be honest, my honest favorites are the guys that are the underdogs that you really never saw coming from. Honestly, the Misha Tate fight when she won the belt, man, I almost cried. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Just knowing how hard she worked to get there, and then like seeing her after she put Holly Holm out cold, and then like ran across just screaming. I was like, that has got to be the most rewarding feeling that human being is ever going to feel in her life.
Yeah, man. Like, nothing can take anything away from that performance. Like, even though she lost against Amanda Nunes in her defense, like, that moment in time will last forever.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
It was crazy too, because like I remember that was a big night. Like I was at the Library Square pub downtown, and like it was the first time in a long time that I saw a bit like a pub like packed for a UFC event. It hasn't happened in a while.
Nice.
Right, and like standing room only. Like I was in this pub, and like all of a sudden there's like shitloads of people wearing like Irish soccer jerseys, Irish flag, all that shit, right? Like it was an interesting thing to see, because like you wouldn't think that like even if it's like Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, you wouldn't think that something like that would be so big in the bar here.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's phenomenal to see it get to that level. Like I said, I mean, I first found out about mixed martial arts literally through the TV grapevine when that whole thing happened with the Ultimate Fighter, and
Hmm.
that was pre-internet. I mean that's how crazy that is. The internet wasn't nearly what it is now, and now you look at the popularity of some of this stuff. I mean, it's phenomenal the amount of people that are viewing it. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as of right now, like my only major complaint with the way like matches are made in the UFC is that like I personally believe that like a lot of their fights, for obvious reasons, for money reasons, are made like for the moment and not necessarily for the future, if that makes any sense.
Totally, yeah, totally. I completely hear you on that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always going to be the give and take. In my opinion, is that it's an entertainment industry. It just is.
Hmm. Hmm.
At the end of the day, it's about the numbers. If it's not about the numbers, what's it about? I mean, it's got to add up for those guys.
Hmm. Like,
It's the reality, though.
oh yeah, 100%. Like I mean, the whole like fight between like that they're planning on booking Bisping Henderson part two.
Oh
I
my!
I love that fight. I personally do as a fan. Like I love that fight. I'm down to see that part two. Imagine if sorry, go on.
No, sorry. I was just. It drives me nuts how people don't want to see that fight because there's so much on the line. That's like, you don't think Michael Bisping wants to go out knocking out Dan Henderson? You don't think Dan Henderson wants to go out on his career knocking out Michael Bisping a second time and taking the belt? That made the greatest fight in history.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you fully. Like there's so much story behind it, but
Oh,
like if you turn it around and look at the perspective of like guys that like are higher ranked than Dan Henderson, guys that have worked like that have won more to get to that shot, like it doesn't make any sense. But from like a fan standpoint and from a story standpoint, this is the fight we want.
absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I take Rogan's standpoint on it too. That's the fight that everybody wants to see. So you got to make it happen. It's just end of story. But I agree with you. It sucks for the guys that are, sitting up at the top that are like, what the hell, man? Like, what about my shot? I mean, it's a tough industry, man. I don't pretend to understand it fully. I mean, I barely know anything about it, but from what I can tell, I mean, it's tough. Self promotion is such a tough thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is a tough thing. Like actually, I've actually consulted like a few fighters, like, because, like, I'm involved in like online marketing and stuff. I've had a few guys, like, tell me like, hey, what can I do to like help my brand and all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome that at least guys are thinking like that. They're at least thinking outside the box and starting to realize like this is equally as important, as the training. Like I have to focus on this kind of stuff as well. That's how you get a career going.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the my one issue with that is, like, if you're like in a perfect world, if you're if you're a fighter, you focus on fighting. Forget the whole marketing bullshit. Forget about, like, having to say a certain thing to attract certain people and to get certain kinds of attention. But, like, that's just not how the world works, unfortunately.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, look at Connor. Like, a lot of people like hate on Connor for getting his opportunities, but, the saying goes, like, hungry, like, quiet mouths don't get fed, right?
That's right. I can't understand how anybody can knock on the guy. I mean, I get that you're gonna get haters, and that's all fine. But the guy made all of this opportunity himself. I mean, when he came to the UFC, he was literally on welfare.
Yeah.
People forget that, and now he made what, $10 million on his last fight or something like that. I mean, you can't. How can you possibly hate on a guy that went literally from rags to riches in 4 years? I mean, kudos to him. Everyone should be excited for that guy. And everybody, and I think a lot of fighters have taken a page out of his book and said, okay, well, I got to do something. It doesn't have to be that, but I have to be more vocal
Mm-hmm.
and more calculated in my approach. Connor obviously is a master, but I think it's opened guys' minds to the fact that you have to figure out how to brand yourself accordingly, whether that's through a great marketing team, so that you don't have to do it as much yourself, which a lot of guys are going to, and I think it's very important. I was literally in the middle of the snowboard industry when they went through these tremendous growing pains, where you're seeing a lot of guys that they just weren't good at being in front of a mic, but if they had the right marketing team, they were making a lot of money because they were given different opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. So, we're almost the show, like, we're almost like at the tail end of our show. Like, who are some before, like, we go ahead and close out, like, what are some fights that you're looking forward to coming up other than Bisbing Henderson?
Well, obviously, Connor and Diaz round two. I mean, man, I mean, how can you not be excited for that fight? I think everything is really interesting. The way that the landscape has changed, especially post UFC 200, we're getting all the guys popping for different stuff, and guys are threatening to leave and want out of their contracts. I mean, I think the whole scope of the game is about to change again. So.
Mm-hmm.
To answer your question, the only one that really gets me going right now is obviously the Vancouver card, given the fact that Ryan James and a couple local guys hopefully will be on there.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry for who's Damian Maya fighting again? I'm blanking.
Oh, you're gonna love it. Yeah, Carlos Condit.
I knew I could think of the face, I just couldn't think of the name offhand. But yeah, that's right. My God, that's gonna be a great fight.
That's a really good fight, man. That's a fight that we've been wanting to have here for a long time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the whole scope of the UFC, especially, I think it's about to change radically given
Mm-hmm.
the cards coming up. Especially, I mean, who knows? I mean, if Nate pulls off upset number two, I think the game's about to change drastically.
Oh, Connor has so much to lose in that fight.
Everything to lose.
Like, in fact, like, I'll be honest with you, I did not want the rematch right away. I wanted him to, like, get his focus together and defend his belt. That's what I wanted him to do, right?
I, absolutely. I totally can see that point. I wonder about the cut now that they don't allow rehydration with the bags. I think it's going to be real difficult for him to get down there. So I think that's my opinion. Is I think that's why this second fight went down, because I think they realized that it's a real big money fight, and 45 he might have to vacate. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
My prediction of the fight though is I think he pulls it off. To be honest.
I mean, a lot of people don't like a lot of people, like, online, they would say that, like, Connor got his ass kicked, he lost, da da da, against Diaz. Okay, he lost, but I wouldn't say he got his ass kicked. You
I
see how
agree. Yeah, he didn't get his ass kicked. Watch the first round. Watch the first round. He was tagging Nate up. He just messed up with the game plan. That's all it was.
Man, yeah, he did. And like, if you look at the first round too, he was hitting Nate with some good angles, and like he hit like Nate like more times than many others have ever tried to hit him.
Yeah, yeah, I
Right?
agree. My opinion on it is I think he should have attacked the legs far more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If he would have kept attacking the legs instead of getting into a slugfest with Nate Diaz, because you're not going to win a slugfest with Nate Diaz.
You'll never win that. You'll never win.
No one's going to win that. He's been doing that with his brother since they were in the womb. I mean, what do you think is going to go down? But my prediction though is I'll go on a limb and say right now, I think Conor pulls it off. Whether it's a decision or a knockout, who knows? But I think he pulls it off, and I think whatever speech he gives at the end is going to be priceless.
Yeah, I mean, like I fully agree with you. The game plan that needs to be had in that is attack the legs more and keep using your angles. Don't fight in a straight line like Nate does.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely. The scary part is that it's not like Nate's coming off a boat from Cabo Wabo this time. He's coming
No.
down. So this is like like I said, the fight game is about to change forever. One way or the other, it's never going to be the same. This is like the Dark Knight.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sold on the fight, man. If are you going to the UFC Vancouver card for sure?
Oh man, I don't know if I'll be going to it, but I'll for sure be watching it, or I'll hopefully be somewhere nearby. So hopefully we can follow up before the card gets here, because I'm sure it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, man. Like if you're like I'm thinking about getting tickets with my girlfriend. Like, if you're around, maybe let's go have a beer or something, have a chat.
Absolutely, I love it. Sounds great.
Awesome, man. Well, Paul, before we go ahead and close out the show, where can people find you online, social media, all that good stuff?
Just check me out Facebook, Instagram, JP Welters, on Instagram, just Paul Welters. I got a MMA page on there as well. Just, has some photos of my last fight. I think you can see the video on there as well. Big shout out to Battlefield Fight Leagues and Jay and those guys once again for putting me on the card. Really appreciate it. My gym Revolution, all the guys there, they're super good. And shout out to Universal and my teammates out that way as well. They're all key players in the local mixed martial arts scene. And for any of the young kids out there that are listening to this that don't train, that are looking to get in, just go check out your local gym. Look it up online, see what you can find. There's lots of great places out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Paul, for appearing on the show. We're gonna follow up next time, and we'll do it in person with a camera, so like everyone can see us talking to each other.
Ryan Ventura, you are a gentleman, sir.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you appearing on the show. Congrats again to you and your future wife.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Good Talk podcast with Ryan Ventura. See you next time.